Hello and welcome to Pain. I'm Amon and I'm gonna be your host today. Please stay a while, relax, cause misery loves company. The reason for all the pain and suffering is simple. I tried beating the Age of Mythology Atlantian campaign without losing a unit. I already managed to beat the Greek, Egyptian and Norse campaigns Deathless, but the really bad stuff doesn't even come out until the Atlantian campaign. God have mercy. The rules are the same as the other campaigns. None of my units can die, allied units aren't mine, so if they want to throw themselves into the meat grinder, I'm not going to stop them. Herdable animals can be controlled, but to especially stick it to the vegans and vegetarians, I'm allowing myself to eat meat on this run. Also, my heroes can die, even though they have proven many times throughout this run that that is what they prefer doing. And of course, I have to play on the hardest difficulty. So, let's begin. I haven't played the Titans campaign in a while, but I don't remember this mission being too problematic. I thought it was because it wasn't problematic, but I think the reason might be because other missions traumatized me way more. The enemy instantly attacks with a group of X-Men and Horsemen, and they're a bit too much to handle for my poor starting units, so I decided for my town center to help me out. Then I built a wall, and that was all I needed to deal with the initial attack waves, because the enemy composition lacks ranged units, so I can just out-repair any damage to the walls with my workers. To deal with the enemies, I decided to use a very diverse composition consisting of archers. A lot of archers. I started attacking the base that built X-Men, but then I got attacked by throwing X-Men, and I have to retreat to my base. Thankfully, my archers greatly outrange the throwing X-Men, so once I'm inside the base, I can't lose. Then it was time for a second attempt at destroying the X-Men base, and I managed to do it. After that, it was time to deal with the base producing horsemen. I waited for them to attack so their base would be empty, and then I attacked it. I only had to deal with a couple of horsemen that were trained periodically. Then it was time to deal with the last base. For that, I walled off a small valley in the middle of the map and baited the defenders towards me. I managed to outrange them and easily take them down. Then it's the same story as with the horsemen. I only have to deal with the units they periodically send out. First I destroyed their barracks, and then I destroyed their fort by baiting and dodging its shots with my hero. Then I destroyed another barracks, and then I destroyed another fort, the same way I destroyed the first one. Now I just had to get a couple of builders into the Sky Passage and onto the Paradise Island, where I started building a settlement, and that's it. Now we start off on the Paradise Island where we built a settlement. First, I quickly expanded towards the middle where I was able to take out a couple of enemies and make a wall in the choke point. Then I easily took out the next attack wave with a couple of behemoths that I get for repairing a couple of temples on this level. And after that, ladies and gentlemen, the insanity starts. This is the 8-minute mark. This must be at least 80 supply and units attacking, all at once. Again, the 8-minute mark. How do they expect me to deal with something like this even if I wasn't going for a Deathless run? Insanity. But even if I pull some crazy defensive stun here, it only gets worse after that. The Titan difficulty in this campaign is way more difficult than the regular campaign. Maybe the Titan difficulty should be called Nightmare difficulty here, cause this campaign has given me nightmares. I guess it's back to the drawing board for this level. If the Deathwave comes at the 8-minute mark, maybe there is something I can do to win before that. Well, there might be something. The end objective of this level is to destroy the enemy town center, which is a building. And the myth units I get for free when I repair the temples are good against buildings. So, I repaired a couple of temples to get behemoths, and I quickly advanced to the next stage to be able to build transport ships at the docks. The next step is to get my behemoths onto the ships and send them on their way. First, I had to wait for an enemy attack wave to be sent out, so they have nothing to defend their base with. The enemy base has a small back door, which is basically a small wooden wall that dies in one shot. After that, I walk towards the enemy town center and take it down with my behemoths. It's easy when a level literally opens itself up to a cheese like that. The next one, however, well, it doesn't. I remember this level being one of the toughest levels in the campaign, and it's only level 3. Lord have mercy. My goal is to kill the Greek General Gravis, but he's hiding in the north, and despite me trying to bait him to attack me and come after me, I couldn't do it. So this level had to be played legitimately. And playing this level legitimately is no easy task. In fact, I had to hatch out a plan way before starting this level because there is no way to just wing it with this one and do it deathless. Although I start the level with limited forces, I send them out to take out a statue of Gravis in a nearby fishing town, so it can belong to me. You know I mean business when I didn't even have time to commit war crimes on the innocent townfolks there. I walled off a section leading into the town, and I also destroyed another statue, which gave me access to stone archers, which are going to serve as towers behind another wall line. Then I waited for the first attack wave, and I took it down with my units, accompanied by my statues. This level starts me off in the heroic cage, which means I can build forts immediately, which is exactly what I do because I desperately need their firepower. I've built 2 of them right next to each other to reduce the surface area that can be attacked on, and then right away a huge attack wave arrives. I do a lot of microing in and out of my forts to protect my guys and poke the enemies, and after a while the wave goes down. Then I build a 3rd one while producing Centauriuses, which are strong cavalry who are extremely fast, and speed is a thing I desperately need on this level. The enemy soon starts attacking with siege towers, and my horsemen are the only thing fast enough to take them down and escape with their lives. After that, it was time to explore the creepy cave and go after the Cyclop King's brother, Polyphemus, who offered quite solid resistance. After that, I found an underworld passage that brought me to the other side of the map, where I borrowed a couple of enemy relics. I was too lazy to read their descriptions, so I have no idea what they actually do, but I'm sure they won't hurt to have. Then a tricky wave with more siege towers arrives, and I have to go back. After that, I went north to take out one of the enemy forward bases together with their huge force. I managed to micro my low horseman who was being targeted by the archers, so he wouldn't get hit because he was too fast for their arrows. You might have noticed there are a bunch of plenty vaults throughout the area, and you would be inclined to fight for them because they provide a bunch of free resources. But in this level, the game cheats, because these are not regular plenty vaults. They provide about 1/4 of the value they usually provide, which makes them a lot less useful. After I managed to stabilize and get a couple more horsemen, it was time to attack the good general. He's hiding in a base, and once I get even remotely close to him, he will spawn a bunch of guys, which will go after me. Thankfully, most of them are myth units, and I turned all my horsemen into heroes once I made them, so this was a very one-sided battle. The general can't be aggroed away from his fort, so I had to destroy it to stop its harassment. Soon after, I started dealing with the good general himself. He actually has a bunch of health, but I managed to surround him and take him down. At the end, the game showed this incredibly weird camera angle, which I guess served so you can better see me totally annihilate the general. After an exhausting level like the last one, the thing I love doing most is breezing through the next level because my mental capacity is at an end. The next level wants me to replace 3 Odin temples with my own, and wait, Caster? Where are you going? Well, I sure hope you know what you're doing. Oh, you went for the relic that gives me a Pegasus after you return it to my temple. But why would you do that? Oh well, let's just get you home. After using the artificially made spot through the woods to return, I started building a fort because the enemy attacks with a huge force after some time. In the meantime, I went for building behemoths, which seemed to be the trademark for cheesing levels in this campaign. I told them to hide in the corner, and soon after, my Pegasus spawned, and I used him to reveal one of the temples. But the enemy attack wave came, and I wanted Caster there to help defend, but I also wanted to take the temple down quickly. So I garrisoned Caster into a building and then used the vortex power next to the temple, which teleports all my units that are outside of buildings there. That's why I hid a couple of infantry units that I started with into the town center at the beginning of the level, so they wouldn't be in my way. In the meantime, my guys defended the base while the behemoths took out the temple. Then I teleported the temple into its place by using my special teleport building button. I do the same thing for the second temple. The third temple is defended by towers and they can easily take down my Pegasus. So I had to have some good luck with RNG to be able to dodge the tower shots and get to the hill where they can reach me. I used the deconstruct power on the temple and replaced it with mine. Then I teleported all my behemoths to Odin's tower, where I took out the towers defending it. When it was safe, I teleported Caster near the tower and got a very cool, very unique deconstruct wonder power. Then I used it on the temple and watched it deconstruct. Beautiful. After cheesing a mission, the only valid thing to do is cheesing another mission. This one needs me to take 4 relics to my temple in the middle of the map. Now, with good planning and pathing, this mission can be extremely quick and relatively painless to beat, and I will demonstrate it. First, I turned a couple of my units into heroes and attacked the south. Then I trained a horseman who took the relic and quickly brought it to my temple, which gave me a tornado power. I placed another horseman into my boat and took him west, where I used my tornado power to destroy a wall portion, which gave me another relic. That relic gave me the earthquake power. Then I proceeded southeast, where I used the earthquake on a gate. But the enemy defenders got aggroed and I had to split my horsemen so one of them would distract them while the other gets the relic. The guy on distraction duty wasn't allowed to leave the base perimeter, or the enemy would have targeted my other horseman, who had 3 health by the way. So I played Ring Around a Rosie around this tree group where the group of enemies would constantly chase me. Fun fact, this is not the last time Ring Around a Rosie is gonna be played in this run. This gave my injured guy enough time to take the relic into the temple. The relic gave me the Ancestor power, which spawns units with timed life, which unfortunately I am never going to use. The last relic is a bit tricky. It's behind a wall, guarded by a bunch of units. Thankfully, you can get to the base by boat as well. You just have to build one. So I tasked my villagers to make a proxy dock. Then I used the transport ship to carry my horsemen across and I nicked the relic in front of a bunch of defenders. Then I went back to the ship, went across and returned the relic to the temple. And that's it. Last 3 levels I came up with meticulous plans in order to make them a lot easier than they were supposed to be. This one, however, was complete improvisation. I'm allowed to occasionally have some fun, aren't I? The unique mechanic of this level is that you can bring units right next to the temples and turn them into the corresponding unit. This is an extremely fun mechanic. I turned my first group of units into Cyclopses with a couple of Valkyries to heal them. Then I destroyed a couple of shrines at the edges of the section, which gave me a couple of god powers, and then I went to the middle. There was a small army there, but I took it down and went to the other side of the map. There, I found a small valley where there were a couple of shrines. When I took the last one out, it upgraded all my Cyclopses and Valkyries. Then I went north and found a lot of units there. So I turned all my units into Manticores, which have a strong area attack. And in a huge group like this, they are insanely deadly. Then I went after the enemy production to stop them from producing units. I used a similar strategy for the south base, but this time I hid all my units behind the wall that guards the underground passage, so I didn't have to micro them at all. Then I destroyed a couple more production structures and it's time to finish the mission. In the meantime, I destroyed another shrine to gain a couple of bolt powers because they are going to be crucial for the last part of this mission. And the reason for that is because the last part of this mission involves heroes. A lot of heroes. They decide to go down from their base to attack me, and basically if one of those heroes even touches my myth units, it's a reset. This especially goes for a guy who has a freaking Medusa head and a guy who rides a Pegasus. So I instantly bolted them. After that I had a couple more bolts left, so I bolted a couple other heroes as well. Then I just had to ascend Mount Olympus and it was time for a feast, where I could finally dine with the gods. Looks like the gods didn't like that I crashed their lunch, so they unleashed a couple of titans on this world to take revenge. This mission is a very good time to talk about poor mission designs. Having an ally you have to send 3 bird transports to evacuate them is not a bad idea. But the bad level design here comes from the very diverse attack waves the enemy sends. The enemy attacks with a varied composition of Prometheans. And that's it. Only them. It's the only thing that attacks me on the entire level. And since I'm playing Egypt here, the only reasonable thing to do is build priests. And since priests counter myth units, I just build a bunch of them and tell them to stay behind a wall where they poke enemy myth units from afar. Unfortunately, I can't bring the birds to my ally straight away, but I first have to somehow survive this incredibly difficult defensive segment. A couple of walls at the choke points did the trick for the majority of this mission. But in the last couple of minutes I got attacked by the Titan on this mission, so I built a couple of layers of walls just in case. When the timer expired, I sent the 3 bird transports straight to my ally. Such a disappointing level once you realize that you can completely trivialize it by doing this. But that's okay. I needed a free win in my life to make me feel a bit better about myself, because the next level will pull no punches. The first 10 minutes of this mission have proven to be one of the toughest 10 minutes I have ever played in any RTS, ever. The level of micromanagement required to get through this period in particular was just insane. There are just a bunch of things that have to be done in the first minute of the game, and being even slightly off will merit a reset. There is no gold on this mission, so the intended thing to do here is get caravans that are going to travel with gold from my ally town center towards my market. There are a bunch of caravans scattered throughout this map, so I have to map out which units to find them with and which route to take them back on. Another important bit in the beginning is bringing 2 workers to my ally's base, and these workers are going to build a market there. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do that when I already have a market? The caravans have to travel through half of the map to get to my ally's base, and they are going to be under serious pressure while trying to return to the market in my base. Of course, it will be a lot less gold because the amount I get is based on how far the caravans travel, but I won't have to worry about defending my caravans. In fact, I won't have to worry about defending anything at all, except my dear head. The goal of this level is to awaken the Guardian with the Son of Osiris. The Guardian area, however, is constantly under pressure and it is very hard to defend it. So I just abandoned him. I brought my units to the northern base and started building a wall. Everything I'm ever going to need or do is going to be behind it. This is where the second half of this magical level comes into play. The enemy attack waves. I have to be able to defend myself from a bunch of units and my gold is extremely limited at the beginning of the level. So I have to micro my units from huge attack waves coming after me. Alongside my Son of Osiris, fight a couple of heroes and priests, and chariot archers. You know how in my Egyptian video I said that he can destroy whole planets? Well, that's still true, but the attack waves I have to deal with here bring so many units that they would fill the population of multiple planets. I can easily deal with the myth units the enemy throws at me, but the problem are the Atlantian units they send alongside them. They attack with a bunch of Murmillo and Arcus heroes. The Murmillos aren't that difficult to deal with, but the Arcus guys are insanely strong against basically all my units and they love focusing my Son of Osiris, so I have to micro him to protect him. An interesting feature about this level in particular is that Son of Osiris can actually get healed. He usually can't heal and I praise the Lord every day that this level is the exception because he gets focused down a lot. After my gold operation finally starts working properly, I manage to stabilize, and since the enemy sends mostly myth units on this level, priests are going to be the name of the game here. But until I manage to reach critical mass of them, I have to survive. At one point my wall even gets taken down, but somehow, someway, I managed to survive this unharmed, and I told my villagers to quickly rebuild that section of the wall. After about 15 minutes of fighting for my dear life, I finally managed to survive, and I reached critical mass of priests. And I think the enemy noticed that, because they basically stopped attacking after that. And after the 25-minute mark, they completely stopped. Either the triggers in this level somehow broke, or the level didn't expect me to still be playing this level past 25 minutes. Either way, you won't hear me complaining. And now it was time to strike. I brought my army who heavily counter smith units, including the Titan, and I got wrecked. The Titan is a lot stronger than I thought, and microing my units around him is a lot more difficult than it seems. So the only reasonable thing to do is finally awaken the Guardian and get this over with, which involves waiting. A lot of waiting.
6.5 hours later.
Right before the Guardian woke up, something beautiful happened. Turns out, I'm not the only one who likes committing war crimes. My ally rallied a bunch of his workers who just wanted to harvest lumber to the enemy base, and the enemy sure knew what to do about that. This is such a massive scale of war crimes that they should open up an investigation into the enemy in the Hague War Crime Court. Beautiful. I almost feel bad for having to utterly destroy them with the Guardian. Almost. And now it's time to finally get this over with. My Guardian wants to taste some Titan flesh. Despite this level being insanely difficult, it didn't really feel like a slog, like some levels. I actually enjoyed it, because it felt like one giant puzzle which I had to piece together. There were hours and hours of trial and error for this level, but coming up with placing the market in the allied town really put it all into place. After that, I came up with completely abandoning the Guardian, and you can see the fruitful result of this strategy. Soon after, my unkillable Guardian committed the greatest mass murder event in ancient history, and it was time for the next level. The last level was pretty draining, and you know what that means. It's time for a cheese. This one features a giant troll titan that is supposed to die when my reinforcements come. But I was never one for following the rules, so I used a hero and I brought him next to the Titan to bait him to come to me and get away from his fellow friends. A couple guys came alongside him, but Caster took care of those. Then I used the King of Giants to freeze the Titan and my unit started going to town on him. Unfortunately, the enemy discovered how to use the Traitor God power on this level, which turns any of my units to their side. Which means I could only attack him with heroes, who are immune to this god power. The initial Frost Giants I started the level with are gonna have to take a time out for this one. In the meantime, I built a couple of barracks and used them to train hammer guys, who are great against myth units and count as heroes. The ideal combo for this level. Then I built a healing fountain to heal my damaged units and froze the Titan again. This time I attacked him with a couple of hammer guys accompanied by a couple of fanatics, who I turned into heroes beforehand. When he unfroze, I took my guys away and let the Titan attack the King of Giants, who is extremely durable. In the next freezing wave, I used my Flaming Weapons god power to increase my attacks against the Titan, and that was enough to take him down. I thought Titans were supposed to be stronger than that. The goal of the next level is to kill the Titan and weaken him by healing the areas around the settlements. This level lacks trees, so they gave me Gaia's Woods power to grow trees anywhere on the map. But trees can be used for more than just harvesting. I used the charge of the tree power to grow trees right in the middle of the enemy base entrance, making this area impossible to go through. The enemy won't give up without a fight though. They tasked a bunch of workers to chop the trees down. All these tree choppings? I'm getting Isengard flashbacks here. R.I.P. Saruman, you will always be remembered, Great White Wizard. After that, I made a bunch of towers right next to them to shoo them off. After I put the third tower down, they just gave up entirely. Then I went towards the other enemy base entrance, which also happens to be a choke point, which is just small enough to put some trees there. And that's it. This is how you completely eliminate the enemy base in this level. Now you can just watch the enemy troops gather in the circle and sing campfire songs together. Now, all I have to do is deal with the Titan and his occasional wave of Prometheans, which are really pathetic. It's like I was supposed to be attacked by something else, in addition to these guys. The level wants me to build settlements to heal the floor around them, so the Titan can be weakened. However, all my buildings are capable of healing the floor, and since I'm a lazy potato, I built 2 granaries right next to the settlement, which healed it. And I did that 4 times. In the meantime, I started training archers, who get turned into heroes right after they are produced. And when I had about 40 of them, it was time to move out. But before that, I recovered the relic that lets my infantry deal additional damage to titans. Now, the reason why I chose archers to take down the titan is because they can take him down from range, while my heroes bait him by playing Ring Around the Rosie around the settlements. The problem is that the titan has a whopping 99% damage reduction against all ranged attacks, so it took an eternity of baiting and playing Ring Around the Rosie to actually put any real dent in him. But despite the fight being pretty boring and taking as long as a freaking World of Warcraft boss fight, I took him down. This mission starts us off on a very cool looking island inhabited by machines. The time machine from the Terminator broke down and left all Terminators stranded on this island, where they made a utopia for themselves. The goal of this mission is to liberate each section of the island and then mass up a force and assault the middle. At the very start of the mission, I'm assaulted by a bunch of Terminators and I have to take them down. After that, I have to... Wait, what? That's it? Already done? That was, disappointing. Oh well, I guess it's time for the grand finale. For this mission, I had an awesome plan to cheese it so hard it would be insane. I was gonna quickly turn the pools into Gaia trees, and since only one tree has to survive after that, I was gonna use my tree powers to wall in the pool in the northeast, and then I was going to evacuate all my units onto transport boats and just drink coffee at the edge of the map until Gaia is summoned. But then I took a closer look at what the Gaia trees actually spawn. A couple of dryads, sure, I can bring those onto boats, but also plants. Freaking carnivorous plants who can't move anywhere. And I couldn't even pretend that they were trees because not only do I have control of them, but it says in the description that they are myth units. So I had to play this level legitimately. Despite that, I tried to find the most painless way to deal with this level while protecting all the plants that are being spawned next to the objective. And the tactic I came up with is destroying the enemy base in the middle of the map, so they won't send any attack waves at me. For such a massive enemy base on the last level in the campaign, the enemy actually had remarkably few forces defending it. I started from the south, took out a couple of defenders, and then used the traitor god power to persuade a Heka giant to join my cause. The next portion of the base with a couple of barracks in it was also pretty easy to deal with, and the enemy even attacked me with a fire siphon, which is a medium-ranged siege unit. And since I'm lacking siege units, I persuaded him to help me as well. The last push though was quite difficult. The enemy started producing a bunch of units, which means my heroes and archers are gonna have a bunch on their plate. Plus, the enemy town center is surrounded by a bunch of towers, and they love poking me all the time. Thankfully, my siphon is great against buildings, and takes very low damage from tower shots, so it was able to soak up most of the heat. After that, I took down the town center. But I decided I needed a little bit of help to clear out the fort, so I trained a bunch of behemoths for the final push. During that push, I also persuaded another giant to join my cause, and I took out the enemy production. The footage you are watching here is my second attempt at taking the base out. On my first attempt, the enemy used the spider power around my first pool, and one of the spiders pulled one of my horsemen to his death. And I didn't see it happen, so I destroyed the enemy base and only saw it afterwards. Thank God I noticed this after I destroyed the enemy base and not after winning the level, which is when I usually check run footage if I missed a death somewhere. It would have really sucked to do this level again from the beginning, all because of a stupid spider. After dealing with the base, I saw that I have a bunch of gold banked up, so I decided the best thing to spend it on would be an upgrade that feels like a literal cheat code. But it's not. It's there for real in this game, and it's called Omniscience. This magical upgrade lets the players see all units and buildings the enemies have on the map, including the units they built from this moment on forever. The way that it's balanced is that it costs gold based on the number of units the enemies have. And since I destroyed the enemy base and there were just a couple of units left on the map, I bought it for 3,000 gold, which was a literal steal. And now I could see all remaining enemies on the map and any future ones they spawn. When the pools are being claimed, a couple of attack waves spawn, but they are easy to deal with using my heroes. After all pools are claimed, attack waves spawn in the middle of the map, and they randomly move towards my pools, so the best thing to do is place my heroes in the middle and spawn camp them. The waves consist entirely of myth units, so it's not really that difficult to take them down. After a while, Kronos himself appeared, but thankfully he is slower than a snail. And he just keeps following me while I patrol with my heroes trying to deal with the spawning myth units. Unfortunately, one group of units managed to break through, but thankfully they went after the tree in the northeast, and I used the tactic with blocking trees to wall it off. I guess one could say they couldn't see the tree from the forest. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Soon after, Gaia spawns in and is ready to give her son some good old ass whooping. After she spanked him really hard, she took him down and that's it. Not a single plant was harmed during the making of this documentary. This run has been a bit more methodical than the previous three. There was a lot less improvisation and a lot more preparation involved because the difficulty of this campaign just doesn't allow me to make mistakes or figure stuff out on the go. But before I sign off, I need to rectify a wrong. I felt bad for not committing war crimes on Mission 3, but what the workers didn't know is that it was just temporary. Now, you might be aware that the game has one more major campaign which focuses on the Chinese faction. And if you are, chances are that you are also aware that it really sucks. And for that reason, I'm not going to try to beat that one Deathless. If I'm playing a game, I'm supposed to have fun, and despite being put through so much suffering in this campaign, it was suffering in a campaign which I actually enjoy playing. I hope you will understand. But to end this video on a more positive note, I will give you a little hint about what I'm going to do next. It involves another Deathless challenge and a Warhammer 40k game. But more on that soon. Thank you all so much for sticking with me on this incredible journey. Turns out it really is possible to beat Age of Mythology and the Titans expansion without losing a single unit. Not even once. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to stay tuned for more, maybe consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help out. And if you want to give me some feedback on what you liked about the video or where I can improve, or just tell me how sorry you feel for the suffering I had to go through, my comment section is always open. Once again, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next challenge. Peace.